Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
And all the wonderful devotees assembled. Maharaj, we are very happy to welcome you and very grateful that you have accepted this very special program. Everyone is very excited. So we have called it the 3 decades of Yatras, a journey from 1989 to 2019. And we have the august presence of several hundreds of, there'll probably be thousands of devotees, but especially our most cherished Vrindavan Sevaks who have been helping us all along. So today the program will be that Grace Gaurang Prabhu will we'll have a discussion with His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj on the various aspects of the yatra, his Maharaj's vision, his mood, his desires, and all his, of course, his memories. That will be the core of the program. So, Gaurang Prabhu, over.
Years of yatras which we have been enjoying in your association to so many holy places, right from the late 80s all the way till 2019 Vrindavan Yatra. So I would like to begin by asking you this question that, the first time when you experienced Srila Prabhupada's association in Vrindavan Dham, so at that point, what was the experience like with Srila Prabhupada on a Dham Parikrama? So I'll begin with that question for all of us to hear your experiencing the Parikrama with Srila Prabhupada.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Pastata Desha Tarine Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktabinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I am so very grateful to be with all of you today. I'm seeing my very esteemed and worshipable God sister Mandakini Devi. Thank you for joining us and blessing us. And to all of the devotees. These yatras are something that began as a very personal expression of the joy of sharing Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Of course, when I began my spiritual life in India, that's all I did, is I was living as a simple sadhu going to holy places. And at each holy place, I would find another sadhu to show me the various holy spots of that place. And I would select one and just do whatever bhajan I was doing at the time in that place. So I began on a yatra, the holy places of the Himalayas. And then I went to many places in northern India, western India. And actually, it was while I was traveling to holy places on my way to Amarnath from Pashupatinath that I came to Mathura and Vrindavan. And while in Vrindavan, of course, you know the story. I got typhoid fever, so I could not leave. And when I was restored, great devotees, Brijabasis, God brothers of Srila Prabhupada, basically, after sitting with Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, Prabhupada's God brother, with kirtan for 3 to 4 hours in the morning, I would just go to different holy places of Vrindavan. And basically that's how I spent my whole day. And it's in doing that I had such experience that I made one of the most important decisions of my life, that I'm going to commit myself to the path of bhakti, to the path of devotional service in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. And I resolved in my mind I would never, ever leave Vrindavan for the rest of my life. And again, throughout the day, I was just going to different holy places and meditating and chanting and doing japa and kirtan and reading and hearing stories. And that was my whole life. And then Srila Prabhupada came to Vrindavan. It was at the end of November of 1971. Actually, this is the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada coming to Vrindavan. It was the first time in the history of Vrindavan that a group of committed devotees from foreign countries had ever come. I believe there was either 30 or around 30 or 40 devotees that were with Srila Prabhupada. And when I was living in Vrindavan, there was Asim Krishna Das, and there was an Australian lady named Radha Dasi. And we were the only 3 people from outside of India that were in Vrindavan. And the Brijabasis didn't even see us as foreigners. They just saw us as one of them. We were all in our separate ways, but we were just considered residents of Vrindavan. So when Srila Prabhupada came with a bus of 30 or 40 devotees from America and Europe and Australia and Africa and all these different places, it was really a culture shock for the Brijabasis. They just could not believe it. Everyone was celebrating Srila Prabhupada. that he has done what no one has ever done in the history of the world. He's opening the doors of Vrindavan to the world. And not only as a place to visit, not only a place of pilgrimage, but a place where sincere, surrendered, committed devotees from all different races, all different religious backgrounds, all different nationalities. And every morning there would be a Mangal Arati at 4:30. Srila Prabhupada and all the devotees were staying at a place not too far from the Madan Mohan temple. It was in a person's home. It's a large home. And then Srila Prabhupada would give Srimad Bhagavatam class. And then there'd be breakfast. And after breakfast, Srila Prabhupada every single day would personally take us to the holy places of Vrindavan. He took us to his rooms at Radha Damodar and explained, the background of him living there and the emotions that we could see on Srila Prabhupada. Because just imagine, for 6 years when Srila Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, he was praying every day to Srila Rupa Goswami for the blessings, the mercy, and the grace to take his message and the message of his Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to the people of the West. And how many times Srila Prabhupada must have prayed that he could bring people from all over the world to experience Vrindavan, his eternal home. And now, for the first time, he was bringing a group of devotees to Vrindavan. When he left, he had just one follower who was, a distance away. And he didn't know a single person of the West. And he was returning with many temples in various places of the world. Srila Prabhupada was just so happy. And we could feel his gratitude to Rupa Goswami and Radha Govinda, that he's showing people from all over the world the various holy places of Vrindavan. He brought us to Barsana and Nandagram. He brought us to many, many holy places in the village of Vrindavan. He took us to Gokul, Mahaban. Beautiful story at Brahmanda Ghat, where I just remember Srila Prabhupada, how happy he was to see all the devotees bathing in the Yamuna River. Every day, Srila Prabhupada would bathe in the river and offer oblations. And now, such a prayer and a dream fulfilled. Because this particular pilgrimage that Srila Prabhupada led in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada understood it was a beginning. It was opening the doors to Vrindavan for all his disciples all over the world. What was my experience, you ask Gauranga Prabhu? What can I say? This is the time I surrendered to Srila Prabhupada during this pilgrimage that he was taking us on. This is when I accepted him as my spiritual master. And before I met him, I was visiting holy places all over India. When I was living in Vrindavan, my main service was just meeting people, Brijavasis, in holy places. And when I surrendered to Srila Prabhupada was taking us on pilgrimage to holy places. But of course, I had to leave Vrindavan because of my visa expiring. And I remember Ganesham Baba, he told me that if you have to leave Vrindavan, you should go to New Vrindavan. Because I have been told by people that your guru, Prabhupada, said that New Vrindavan is non-different than Vrindavan. And and then Ganesham smiled and said, and when you go there, become a pujari. Now, I didn't even remember that he said any of these things, but somehow or other, without any plan, I ended up at New Vrindavan. And without any plan, I was assigned the service of being a pujari. And because I was a pujari taking care of the deities, I was told that I wasn't allowed to ever leave the deities for the rest of my life. And this came as a shock to me, not a surprise, but a shock, because I was not surprised by anything happening in the ISKCON movement in those days. But the only reason I went to Vrindavan is so that after 6 months I could go back to, the only reason I went to New Vrindavan was to wait until I can get a new visa to go back to Vrindavan. But now I was told that I have to stay for the rest of my life. And I didn't leave New Vrindavan for about 8 years. But the interesting thing is when I arrived in those days, this is 1972, the main project that Srila Prabhupada gave to New Vrindavan was to make it a place of pilgrimage and replicate Vrindavan, and even named various holy places we should establish there, so when people come, we could take them on parikramas of Vrindavan. This was my, let us say, the formative years were so much oriented around going to holy places. And when somehow or other I was first allowed to come back to India after I took sannyas, I remember developing such a close and loving friendship with devotees in Mumbai. And our first yatra, in those days in ISKCON, there was not, I don't know of any yatras that there were. But I was just visiting Mumbai, and there was 8 devotees. And I said, let us all go to Mayapur and let us have a pilgrimage, because this year is the 500th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in the world. So actually our first yatra was with 8 devotees. And really, we thought that was a lot. We were really thinking 8 devotees were a lot. That was in 1986. And the 500th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's appearance marked our first yatra. And devotees liked it so much that the same year, in 1986 in Kartik, we brought 25 devotees from Mumbai to Vrindavan. And in those early days, our yatras, they were smaller, obviously. We would begin going to holy places right after Mangal Arati at 5 in the morning. And we would usually get back around midnight. And there was no stages to give lectures. We would just go to so many places every day, and we would give full lectures in each place, just sitting on the ground under a tree, surrounded in those. At that time, it was 25 devotees. And then in 1987, we had another yatra where we went to the Himalayas. And we can discuss that a little later. And then just after that, we had a yatra to Puri, Jagannath Puri. And it all came from the inspiration of how I felt Srila Prabhupada, he saved me while I was on a yatra. And my first meeting with him was he was taking us on a yatra. And then I went to a place and he told us to establish it for people to go on yatras. Does that kind of answer your question, Gauranga Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much for sharing these beautiful memories. And I also have noted down the list of yatras you have taken right from 86 till 2019. So I wanted to also plan my questions accordingly. So in the period between 1986 to 1992, I request you to share any prominent memories, because I'll just share with you that with all the devotees who are on this, witnessing this event, that in 1988, Maharaj took yatra to Puri and Mayapur, 89 to Vrindavan, 1990 to Hampi, 91 to Chitrakoot and Vrindavan, and 1992 to Dwarka. So actually 92 summer, Dwarka, that was actually the first yatra I had also attended. I think it was 93 summer. And I remember the amazing experience traveling in bus all the way to Dwarka and some of the holy places near Dwarka. So those early first 6 years, 7 years, Maharaj, would you like to share any prominent memories?
There's too many memories, actually. When we went on this yatra to Dwarka, I remember we first went to Dakor, and we went to the Ranchor temple, which is one of the most famous self-manifesting deities in India, and he's like an Ishtadev for the people of Gujarat. And we visited Balaram Maharaj, a very dear friend of Krishna, Chandra Prabhu and Radha Priya's family. But from Dakora, we went to Dwarka, and we took a boat to Beit Dwarka, and we went to the Porbandar, the place where Krishna, or the residence of Sudama Vipra. And of course, we told that story in great length right there at Sudama Vipra's home. And it's also birthplace of Mahatma Gandhi. We went to Pajak Kshetra. Pajak Kshetra has such an incredible Vedic and Puranic history, but it's also the place where Krishna disappeared from the world. And I remember we asked a devotee at the main temple there to take us to that place. And he just took us, he walked a few minutes and brought us to the bank of the river. And he said, this is the place. And somehow or other, I remember feeling, this doesn't feel like the place. And I started, asking around and walking around, and everyone was following, and nobody knew what we were doing. And somehow or other, we actually found the real place. And we spent a whole day there. It was just so beautiful. Yes, I remember that trip to Dwarka was very special. We went to the Somnath temple. I remember the day we were at the Somnath temple, it was Pandava Nirjali Ekadasi, and everyone was fasting, with no water or anything. And still we were having like 3, 4, 5 hour kirtans and harigatas and walking in the heat of the sun. It was very hot, very, very hot. And everybody just considered those austerities a joyful highlight.
Absolutely, Maharaj. Thank you for, refreshing those memories of Dwarka trip, especially in that period. So now I wish to take the journey to the period between 93 to 97 period. So especially, 93 December was a very historic yatra, because, that was a period of great turmoil. And then finally, all the devotees got to go to Mayapur and Jagannath Puri. So for me also, it was the first yatra after I joined the ashram. So I remember in every station, the train was stopping. We were doing Harinam Sankirtan. And a tremendous welcome was offered by Jayapatak Maharaj and Bhakticharu Maharaj. So would you like to share some memories of that particular trip to Mayapur, where we were hosted by Jayapatak Maharaj and Bhakticharu Maharaj?
It is quite an esoteric background, but let us say His Holiness Jayapatak Maharaj and His Holiness Bhakticharu Swami Maharaj completely melted the hearts of every single devotee. Because we were kind of all exiles for 8 years before that. And they just welcomed us with so much respect and honor and love and affection, and made, just the most incredible prasad they arranged and accommodations. And we would, like all of our yatras we were doing for so many years before that, we would just leave in the early morning after japa and come back late at night. And I remember Bhakticharu Swami Maharaj came out with us several days and gave talks at holy places. And I remember His Holiness Jayapatak Maharaj, I think we went to Hamsa Vahan with him.
Yeah.
And we sat under that massive banyan tree in this lake, and he told the whole story. And I remember every single day in the morning before we'd go out, I would meet Jayapatak Maharaj and Bhakticharu Maharaj, and they would just be asking, do you need anything? Is everyone happy? Is there any way we can serve? And it was just beautiful. And, during those yatras in Mayapur, it was so special. I remember we would usually have like a 3 or 4 hour lecture and kirtan at Srivasangam, till late at night. And we would do the Gaur Arti there, because that's where the Gaur Arti originated. Yes, it was very special. And I think even before that, I also wrote a little, just this morning, a few minutes before this talk, I wrote a few memories down. I guess it was around 1987. we went on a Himalayan pilgrimage. And I think there was about 30 devotees. And we went on buses. First, we went to Rishikesh, then to Dev Prayag. Then from Dev Prayag, we went to Jyotimat. And I remember at Jyotimat, we were trying to get to Badrinath, but the sun had set and they closed the roads. So you can't go up that last mountain until the next day. So we didn't know why, but we were trapped in Jyotimat and we spent the night there. And somehow or other, we met the Shankaracharya at that time of Jyotimat. And I asked him, I said, today's Nrsimha's appearance day. Is there a temple of Nrsimhadev here? And the Shankaracharya said the most important deity of Nrsimhadev in all the world is in Jyotimat. It was the Ishtadev of Shankaracharya. And we went in the morning for the Abhishekam, and the Pujari opened the doors and let us see the whole Abhishekam for Nrsimhadev. And then we had kirtans and Harikatha. And then we went up to Badrinath. And I remember so many, the devotees in Bombay, most all of them had never seen snow in their life. And from the time we left Bombay and Rishikesh, I was getting questions, will we get to see snow? Will we get to see snow? And because it was the month of May, and it was extremely hot, Rishikesh was burning hot. When we got to Badrinath, there was just no snow. And then we decided to start our yatra by bathing in the Alaknanda River. And right before we bathed, there was a massive snowstorm. And, you know, I'm from Chicago. I've seen snow I grew up in snow, but this was really an intense storm. And it was freezing cold, and we bathed in the ice cold Alaknanda River, and then we went to those burning hot sulfur pools, sacred pools, and then we went into the temple of Badrinath, and we were told we are not supposed to dry ourselves off. We're supposed to be completely wet from our bath, and we went in there. And every devotee was saying, when's it going to stop snowing? And the men were all in one little room in a shack because we weren't planning to spend the night. But the roads closed, so we couldn't leave. There was an avalanche of snow. And somehow or other, there was hardly any food up there for guests. You know, all the men were in one little shack and all the women were in another little shack. And for a couple days, we were in Badrinath because we couldn't leave. And then we went to Rudraprayag. And we were planning to go to Kedarnath, but there was an avalanche there, so the roads were closed. And I remember we went to Gangotri, Mussoorie, and then Gangotri. And at Gangotri, there was no place to stay. We were all sleeping on a helicopter pad. That was just a few minute walk from Ganga's temple. And we all took baths in the Ganga. And on another yatra we walked all the way up to Gomukh. You know, we had a whole yatra pilgrimage of devotees. We walked to 20 kilometers to Gomukh, and we came back to Gangotri. And just kathas and kirtans. And then our buses went to Yamunotri. That was very, very special. You had to walk the last, I think, 15 kilometers to get from, I think it's Hanuman Praksha or something to Yamunotri. And I remember at that time, there was a relatively small amount of devotees. It was just very intimate. All our yatras in those days, there was no time schedule. And every time the organizers tried to make a time schedule, they realized the futility of their efforts, because it just, everything was just unfolding by Radharani and Krishna's grace at these various holy places. And on another yatra at that time, we went to Ayodhya. Unforgettable. You know, at the various holy places of Lord Ram and Sita's pastimes in Ayodhya, we would sit and discuss pastimes. And I remember sometimes hours and hours and hours just hearing and chanting together on the bank of the Sarayu River. And I remember during that yatra, you know, people thought it was a really big yatra. The people of Ayodhya thought it was a huge crowd, actually. I don't know how many people it was then, but I remember the president of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad saw us there and called me and asked me, you know, please, he was thanking and congratulating that we were bringing so many people to Ayodhya. And we covered so much of the Ramayana. And on that same yatra after Ayodhya, we went to Naimisharanya. That was so special. The forest of Naimisharanya, the place where Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. And I don't believe there was any advanced team. You know, we just arrived and, you know, where are we going to give lectures? And I remember just walking through the forest, and there was this one beautiful forest with massive ancient trees. And somehow or other, I think Murari Bapu or some other had recently given a katha there. So they actually cut down all the bushes and all the weeds and thorns, and all there was the big trees, and everything else was like a carpet. So it was just a perfect place. We went deep into the forest on the bank of the river. And there we just had Srimad Bhagavatam Katha for many days. Practically from morning till night, we had Bhagavatam Katha every day. And around that same time, you know, we had yatras to Chitrakoot. We visited Janaki Kund, where Aravind Mafatlal and his family, you know, did so much seva for the local people there. And we went to Sati Anasuya and Gupta Godavari, and we went to Chitrakoot Hill, the Kamagiri, and to Bharat Gufa. And it was very, very special. We were all, you know, everywhere we went, devotees were chanting and singing. And the only time we stopped chanting and singing is to hear Krishna Katha. And as soon as the Krishna Katha ended, there was chanting and singing. And it never stopped. From early morning till late at night, it was either kirtan or Krishna Katha and nothing else. There weren't even announcements in those days. And the only time there was a break is when it was time for prasad. And then immediately after prasad, they would be going to more holy places. We also went on yatra to Varanasi, where we went to a place where Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya, the Bindu Madhava temple, where he chanted and attracted thousands of people to kirtan. And we went to the Ghat, the bathing Ghat on the banks of Ganga, where Lord Chaitanya for 1 full month instructed Srila Sanatana Goswami. And such beautiful kathas we had, I remember, and kirtans everything was on the bank of the Ganga in Varanasi, remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela and Lord Shiva's Leela. We went to Kashi Vishwanath and performed various abhisheks and pujas with all the devotees. Yes, that was also very special. And we went to Prayag. Several times we brought yatras of devotees to Kumbh Melas in Haridwar and Prayag, especially in Prayag. And I remember all of us sitting at the place where Lord Chaitanya instructed Rupa Goswami for 10 days. And I remember having a katha there was quite a challenge because there was constantly people gathering around and ringing bells and kirtan groups coming, and somehow or other we just continued on, spending days at Prayag. These are a few memories I'm having. And in 1993, that was very special because Radha Gopinath Temple, we were very much on our own up until then. And we had at least 2 yatras every year from 1986 to 1993. We went to many holy places. I'm just naming a few. And when we went to Puri the first time, that was so special. Just dozens and dozens of holy places of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and Lord Jagannath's pastimes. And bathing in the ocean. And it was for almost all our devotees, it was the first time they had ever been to Jagannath Puri. And everyone except me got to have darshan of Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. And everyone for the first time in their lives tasted Jagannath's Mahaprasad. And the Gambhira and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's place. And we went to Haridas Thakur, Siddha Bakula, and we went to Bedi Hanuman Temple. And to the Gundicha and Ayatota Garden and the Jagannath Ballabha Gardens. It was Tota Gopinath. I think every morning we would chant our japa at Tota Gopinath Temple. And because the yatras were smaller, everyone was completely together from early morning till late night. And then in 1993, we didn't know what would happen when we'd arrive in Mayapur. But when we arrived, there was the whole community of Mayapur was having a kirtan to welcome Radha Gopinath's devotees. There was a loud, blissful kirtan waiting right in the courtyard of the temple of Radha Madhava. And it was just so special. And Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, Jai Patak Maharaj, they had garlands and they performed various ceremonies, and it was just pujas for all our devotees. It was a beautiful welcome.
Thank you, Maharaj, for taking us down memory lane. And I just remembered that during that Mayapur Yatra, as you have spoken so many wonderful, amazing pastimes, but also there are many transcendental, challenges which have come up during our yatras, and I would like you to share that particular incident where from Mayapur to Puri in 1993, when we were scheduled to go, and the katha was going on, and then we were supposed to catch the train at a particular moment. Do you remember that?
From what I remember, Gauranga Prabhu, it was like a special pastime that Krishna performed whenever we had a yatra, that everything was always going wrong. And I remember in the early days of the yatras, when we, at the beginning, there was no organization whatsoever. We would just go to a holy place and just somehow or other work things out moment by moment. We really didn't care if we ate or slept. We were together and we were in a holy place. If we don't sleep, if we don't eat, no problem. And in those early days, every single devotee went on the same train together to go to the yatra. And I remember it was so illuminating, Krishna Chandra Prabhu and his whole family, and Srinathji Prabhu and his family. They would just be on the lower class trains just to be with all the devotees. I think we were kind of third class trains, all of us, because we wanted something we could get tickets for and afford. And everybody, comforts just were not even a consideration. We were together. And we would, as you said, we would chant on the train. Janava Devi and others would always prepare special prasad for us and pack it and put it on the trains. And then when the yatras started getting a little bigger, then Radha Krishna Prabhu and Abhiram Prabhu, they took charge of organizing the whole yatra, as far as the logistics of it and the prasad. And I remember we in that time, and Sanat Kumar Prabhu was always very much involved. And then at a certain time, devotees wanted to cook the prasad ourselves when we started getting bigger, and it took major cooking and major kitchens being set up. And then, the yatra team that's pretty much almost the same as today was established along with Radha Krishna and Abhiram Prabhu. There was so many other people, and we started cooking our own prasad. And yes, it was an evolution, but there were always so many challenges. I can't think of a yatra where there wasn't any major challenges. And a lot of people don't even know what they were. But somehow or other, they would always be brought to my attention. And I was always somehow or other praying with all my heart to save the devotees. That was part and parcel of every yatra. Because we really just put ourselves completely at the mercy of the Lord. I remember the first time we went to Barsana, those 25 devotees, not a single person who was on the yatra ever heard of Barsana or Nandagram. But I used to live in those places, so I was, taking them to old friends that I had, and they would cook for us and wrote braja rotis, and it was just very sweet having those kirtans in the groves and the forests. And usually our inclination was in those yatras to go to the most secluded and dangerous place to have our kathas and kirtans. As far as the train, maybe you could review our memory on that one.
No, we were scheduled to catch the train from Mayapur, from Kolkata, and by the time the Katha and Kirtan ended, we were scheduled to be right on time, but there was some massive traffic jam, and then our buses were stuck, and a whole lot of devotees who were booked to go on that train, they could not catch the train, and then they had to, Abhiram Prabhu's father made all arrangements, and they came by another train the next day. So it was quite an experience. And if I look back, that those days we were planning 2 yatras. So in 93 we went to Jagannath Puri and Mayapur, and then in 94 we went to Vrindavan, and then South India. 2 yatras in a year with you. And especially 1997, I want you to share your memory of our visit to Ekachakra, where in the evening the sun had already set and devotees had their torchlights on yourself, Giriraj Maharaj and Sachinandan Maharaj. And, you were sharing memories of Lord Nityananda's mercy. And then, Giriraj Maharaj spoke about how his ancestors were, from the Jewish background in Europe, and they came to America. And then Sachinandan Maharaj after that spoke, and he said that how his father was in the Nazi army, and part of that whole exercise there in Europe, where the Jews were persecuted. And then you kind of brought this whole thing together and said, just see, this is the real United Nations, where everybody is united under Srila Prabhupada's mercy and Lord Nityananda's mercy. And that whole moment was so electric. I still remember, everybody was stunned in silence as they reflected on the realizations being shared. I mean, these are moments which we cannot forget. So your narrations in Ekachakra are also, always memorable.
Thank you, Gauranga Prabhu. I am recalling that night we were in Ekachakra and going to, all the different holy places of Nityananda Prabhu throughout Ekachakra. And it was night, and we came to that tree that I think there were 2 trees, and Lord Nityananda Prabhu made 2 trees into 1 tree for all his friends when they were little children could play on it. And I think they took the branches from that tree and brought it to the Padmavati lake, and they pretended it was Kalia. But we were sitting under that tree, and from what I remember, it was a moonless night. It was pitch dark, total darkness. And that tree is about a 20-minute walk away from the village. It's just surrounded by, at that time, totally empty paddy fields. And it was absolute silence. And yes, such Giriraj Swami described the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And then Sachinandan Maharaj described the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And I remember I shared when it was my turn to speak at the end that this is the mercy of Lord Nityananda and Srila Prabhupada. Because in this world, conflicts are generational. Between India and Pakistan, there's such distrust and conflict because the partition happened, a couple generations ago. And in Israel, there's such a conflict which just goes back generations and generations and generations. And I said, how, here is the son of a Nazi soldier who is, and here are sons of Jews, and so many of both Giriraj Maharaj and my relatives, my own relatives, so many of our relatives were murdered by the Nazis. Almost everybody in my father's family. And yet, we're best friends. We are completely best friends with total love and total trust, and we'll do anything for each other because Krishna's in the center. When Krishna's in the center, all of these designations, all of these past histories, all of these anarthas are transcended. This was truly Nityananda Prabhu's mercy manifesting through Srila Prabhupada. And one of the striking things that took place while we were having that katha, in pitch darkness, the only light was people were, just a few devotees had flashlights, and they were shining them on Sachinanda Maharaj, Giriraj Maharaj, and myself. And all of a sudden we started hearing, and we saw like people jumping up. And what happened is during the katha, I think there were hundreds of devotees at that yatra, several hundred, all sitting in a field, just on the plants in the field. And a massive snake, probably poisonous, was slithering through the entire crowd. And the devotees were absolutely packed up against each other. The knees of one devotee of every devotee was on the back of another devotee. That's how close everyone was scrunched together. And this snake came through the entire crowd. And, devotees were really taking shelter of Krishna. And yet, as that was happening, we just continued the kathas. And when it ended, we all reflected that Nityananda Prabhu he expands himself as Ananta Shesha. The supreme king of all snakes. So we consider that was his special blessing upon all the devotees. And during that same yatra, this was one of the scariest times of any yatra. We went to Ramakeli. Do you remember that? We went to Ramakeli.
Yes.
And I think the place because there's no guest house in Ramakeli. So we stayed, I think it was Maldar.
Yeah, Malda.
And it was about maybe an hour drive. And in Ramakeli, we were told that between Ramakeli and Malda were the most dangerous forest of killers, dacoits, and robbers in the whole of India. And nobody ever should go there after the sun sets. But here we are in Ramakeli. We see the prison where Sanatana Goswami was in prison, and we saw the Kadamba Kanana where Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami built beautiful replicas of Vrindavan. They made a Radha Kund and a Shama Kund, and they built a Madan Mohan temple, and the different Leela stands of places of Vrindavan, the pastime places. They actually made little replicas of those. And anytime they weren't doing their government service, they would just be in the Vrindavan forest, just doing their sadhana. And there was Rupa Sagara, and Sanatan Sagara bathing places. And at the Madan Mohan temple, Sachinandan Maharaj, Giriraj Maharaj, and myself, we were all speaking. I think first Sachinandan Maharaj spoke, and he went way over time. And then Giriraj Maharaj spoke, and he went way over time. And then I spoke, and I really went way, way over time. And I remember Abhiram and Radha Krishna Prabhus, they were sending me these little messages. We have to leave immediately. Everyone is telling us that it's extremely deadly and dangerous to go through this forest in the night. But somehow or other, they were sending these slips. But really, it's one of my favorite subjects to speak about the 6 Goswamis. And this is the place Lord Chaitanya first met Rupa and Sanatan Goswami and Jiva Goswami. And it was just such a thrilling experience. I didn't see the slips. And they kept sending them more and more. And then they were telling Giriraj Swami and Sachinandan Swami, tell them to stop, tell them to stop. And finally they said, should stop. And then they showed me all the slips. And I said, okay, let me just finish. And by the time we finished, it was pitch dark. And we had several buses, those old, rural Bengali buses. And I remember Abhiram Prabhu, if I remember, and Radhakrishna Prabhu, they arranged that some of our devotees had sticks and kind of pretended they were police constables to try to, because we had to walk a distance to get to the buses. And we were all chanting together, and they were all holding sticks, and they looked like, some sort of security guards. And then when we got on the buses, we were just driving through these pitch dark forests. And everyone knew that they were likely to die that night. The kirtans on those buses were so intensely, emotionally, and heartfelt in their sincerity. And somehow or other, without any incident at all, I think, sometimes the buses were kind of breaking down. We had to stop, but somehow or other we made it to Malda, and we survived. And during that same trip, we also took buses to a giant boat, and several hundred devotees, we all got on that boat together, and it happened to be Govardhan Puja that day. And Sachinandan Swami Maharaj had a Govardhan Shila. So we arranged a whole Govardhan Puja celebration on the boat. And the Ganga at that area is well over a mile or several miles wide. We were on our way to Kanai Natashala. And we had this beautiful Govardhan Puja celebration where Giriraj Maharaj, Sachinandan Maharaj, myself, we all gave kathas, and we had kirtans, and we had abhishek for Giriraj, and devotees, whatever anakuta we could offer to them, we offered on the boat. And it was just wonderful. It was so intimate. Literally sailing in the middle of the Ganga, celebrating Govardhan Puja among devotees. Such kirtans. And then Kanai Natashala was so beautiful, so absolutely wonderful and beautiful. Mahaprabhu performed such beautiful pastime there. And we were there and we just couldn't leave. But then we were told we had to get to the other side of the Ganges before it got dark, because that area of India is the most dangerous place for pirates who rob and kill people on boats. And if I remember, the boat ride, to where the docks were, Kanai Natashala, was about an hour and a half or 2 hours away, if I remember. So I remember the sun, we were very late and the sun was already set. It was just setting in the horizon, and we were having kirtan on the boat as we came back.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for taking
So as far as dangerous situations and problems, they were always there. But I have to very happily admit that most of those problems were preventable, but we were just all too enthusiastic to prevent it.
Thank you, Maharaj. And I think this whole series of yatras which we have experienced with you, it's so memorable. And I think we should continue this discussion further for another session, where I would like to begin next time from, the Ahobalam yatra, which is very historic. And from then onwards, 99 onwards, there is another series of yatras. But at this stage, I would like to express my gratitude to you for spending this evening with all of our Vrindavan Sevaks and so many others. And I wish to announce that the Kartik Yatra 2021 will be online. And this year, because of Srila Prabhupada's 125th birth anniversary, the online Kartik Yatra will be from 25th to 29th October. And the yatra is to places of holy places of interest in and around Kolkata. The schedule from 25th to 29th will be 6 to 7 p.m. will be holy places visit to Srila Prabhupada's Leela, Sthalis by devotees who are speaking about those pastime places. 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. there will be Damodar Ashtakam. And then 7:30 p.m. onwards, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th of October, we would hear from His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, meditating on some of the live yatras which we have attended, but in spirit, we will be all connected on, online. And registrations for this yatra opens on www.rgyatra.com. So you can please connect there. And also, as Maharaj said, the beautiful Vrindavan forest, which many of you are supporting. We are having Kartik festival starting from October 20th, going up to November 19th, organized by Haripriya Devi Mataji. So if any of you are interested to, visit Govardhan Eco Village for the Kartik festival, you can also visit the website and register yourself and come for some of beautiful experiences during Kartik. I would like to express my gratitude to Maharaj for giving your valuable time this evening and taking us down memory lane into beautiful experiences which got refreshed as we heard from you some glimpses of some of those pastimes, and heartful gratitude on behalf of all the devotees who have joined us. Over to you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
If I could just say something.
Yes, Maharaj, please.
I made a little list just before today's event of some of the places I remember that we visited during our yatras, Radha Gopinath congregation. Of course, we've already discussed some, but in North India, Rishikesh, Devprayag, Jyotimat, Gangotri, Yamunotri. In Vrindavan, many times we visited the 12 forests and so many of the holy places of Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, that was a challenge for the organizers because we would assign them to go to holy places that are very, very remote and sometimes very unknown to people, and somehow or other to get there. Vrindavan, Ayodhya, Naimisharanya, We went to Nandagram in Ayodhya, Varanasi, Prayag, Chitrakoot. We had a wonderful yatra to Jaipur. I remember His Holiness Giriraj Swami and His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami were there with us for that. And we visited the temples of the Goswamis. And during that yatra, we went to Karoli to see the original Madan Mohan. We've had a few yatras to Pandharpur. We've had yatra to Kolhapur, to Satara, where Bilvamangala Thakur wrote the Krishna Karnamrita on the banks of the Krishna and Vainva rivers. We had wonderful yatras to Nasik on the banks of the Godavari River, and Tapova, and Kalaram Mandir, and we visited Taket, where Jatayu left his body in the loving embrace of Lord Ramchandra. In Mayapur, we visited all the 9 islands of Navadvip, and we went to Ambika Kalna, the place of Gauridas Pandit, and Priya Ganja, Pyari Ganja, the place of Nakula Brahmachari. I remember when we went to Sri Khanda, we got there at night, and the entire village, there wasn't even a road, there was just an earth pathway leading to Sri Khanda, and the entire village was on both sides of the pathways to welcome the devotees, because we were having kirtan, and all the residents, the Sri Khanda Vasis, they were offering artis and tossing flowers at, to the congregational chanting of the holy names of the devotees. We went to Jajigram, the place of Srinivasa Acharya, to Katwa, where Mahaprabhu took sannyas. Many times we went to Shantipur, the place of Advaita Acharya, Fuliyagram, where Haridas Thakur had his cave and where he was beaten in 22 marketplaces, Ekachakra and Ramakeli. We visited Bhuvaneshwar. We had full yatras in the city of Bhuvaneshwar, and Danda Bhanga, where Nityananda broke the Danda, Shakshi Gopal. We went to the various places of pilgrimage in Jagannath Puri. We went to Konark, Alalanath, Kirchor, Gopinath, and Ramuna, where I remember we spent an entire day having kirtan and kathas, and I remember the culmination was when all the devotees got to have the kheer that Madhavendra Puri, the same kheer that Gopinath stole from Madhavendra Puri, and Lord Chaitanya went into total ecstasy when he tasted it. And in Jagannath Puri, we went several times for Rath Yatras also. And we had a brahmacharya yatra to Bangladesh. That was very, very special. I remember it was the winter, and it was the record coldest days in the history recorded Bangladesh. And we were all there, and we began at Benapole, the place where Haridas Thakur was living in the forest, and Ramchandra Khan sent the prostitute to make him fall down, and he converted her. From Benapole, we went to the birthplace of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. We went to Dhaka, to the Gaudiya Math, where Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada spoke on Srimad Bhagavatam, the first verse for 1 month. We went to Ketarigram, the birthplace of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, and the place where he installed the many deities, and Prematal, which is close by. Under this tree, in the Padmavati River, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave his ecstatic love to Narottam Das Thakur. And what a joy it was after years of hearing about it and reading about it, bathing in the Padmavati River where Narottam Das Thakur resides. We went to Chittagong, the birthplace of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Vasudev Datta, and Mukunda Datta. We went to Srihata and saw the birthplace of Jagannath Mishra. We saw the birthplace of Murari Gupta. We were supposed to go to Advaita Acharya's place, but we didn't have time. And we went to Silate. And as you said, in our various South India yatras, the first yatra we were following exactly in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we began the yatra at Kurmakshetra, which is the first place that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes of Lord Chaitanya in his South Indian tour. That's where he met the Kurma Brahmin. And then we went to Vishakhapatnam, Singhachalam, where Jiyada Narasimhadev is residing, always covered in sandalwood paste because he's still angry at Hiranyakashipu. And then we went to Vijayawada on the banks of the Krishna River. And Vijayawada, we went to Mangalagiri, where Pana Narsingha is living, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there. And in all these places, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he established Lord Chaitanya's footprints. And we went to Ahovalam. In our yatra, we went to all the 9 places of Ahovalam, every one of those temples. And I remember climbing the Ugra Stamba. And it was a windy day, and it was very, very dangerous. And that may be one of the scariest moments for me, because I feel responsible for all the devotees. And I didn't know how dangerous it was. And because I remember I had a muscle spasm in my back just on the way to Ahovalam, so I couldn't walk. So the brahmacharis were supposed to go first to Ugrastamba, but we ended up going the last day. And the first days, I remember Brisha Bhanu Prabhu and Kirtida Mataji, they came to me after the first day and said, "It's only by your mercy that we could do this." And they went all the way to the top of the Ugrastamba. And I was thinking, okay, it's Krishna's mercy. And so many people were saying that, old people, Radhakanta Prabhu, all these elderly devotees were going all the way to the top. And then the last day when it was our turn, that last phase when you have to cross that bridge of a rock way, 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 way up high, I was thinking, I'm not going to do this. It's too windy and it's too dangerous. But I was thinking, how could I not do it? Because everyone was saying that they only did it by my mercy, so I have to do it. So I realized it's definitely not my mercy, it's Krishna's mercy. And I was praying to Krishna. We made it to the top of the Ugrastamba, and that was just beautiful, Ahovalam. And then we went to Kavur, Vidyanagar, on the banks of the Godavari River, where Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya met Ramananda Rai. And for hours and hours, and I remember it was so hot that devotees were falling unconscious due to heat strokes while I was trying to speak the story of Ramananda Rai's discussion with Lord Chaitanya at the very place that this discussion took place. His Holiness Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj developed a beautiful ashram there. And then we went to Kanchi, to Vishnu Kanchi and Shiva Kanchi. Then we went to Tirupati and had wonderful darshans of Balaji. And in our many different yatras to Kanchipuram And Tirupati, sometimes we would speak about Ramanujacharya and Anandacharya in the very places where they performed their pastimes. And we went to Sri Rangam. And I remember during one yatra in Sri Rangam, the Acharya of Sri Rangam, the GR, he personally came on the stage and he arranged us to give our talks in the very same place that Ramanujacharya would speak to his disciples, right within the temple complex. And they said that's very rare that they give that place to anyone. But our devotees somehow melted their hearts, and the GR was on the stage, and Murli Bhatter, the descendant of Venkata Bhatta, and Parasara Bhatter's descendant, Narasingha Bhatter, they all came and they all spoke, and how they glorified Srila Prabhupada. They had elephants welcome us and give us garlands. And those beautiful bands with the horns. It was such a wonderful reception. And we went to Sri Purambudar, the birthplace of Ramanujacharya, and visited Madurai, the Meenakshi temple, and Tanjore. And when we went to Rameshwaram, the kathas we had in that temple of Rameshwaram were so, I'm not speaking about what was spoken at the katha, I'm speaking about the ambience and the reception of the local people and the love and heart-melting enthusiasm for all the devotees. It was just so beautiful. Everyone was sitting in the hallways of the parikrama within the Rameshwaram temple. And I remember we went to Danus Tirtha. And again, somebody said, this is Danus Tirtha. They brought us just to this place on the shore. And somehow or other, I was thinking, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says, anyone who goes to Danus Tirtha gets liberated. And it's the place where the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean meet. So this, I only see one place. So we just started walking. Nobody in that yatra had ever been there before. But we just decided we have to go to the place where there are two oceans meeting. So let's just walk. And we just walked in the sand and nobody had any idea what was going on. But we had kirtan, and it was during the day, it was in the sand, and we walked along the coast for probably an hour, hour and a half. I don't remember exactly. But then we saw in front of us the two oceans meeting. And that darshan, we had to pay a price where we were lost. We were kind of speculating, but we had trust that we would find it. It would be revealed to us. When we saw, though, it was the most beautiful sight that the heart could ever behold. And then we all went in, and I remember one devotee started drowning because of the cross currents and the whirlpools, and all devotees made a chain to somehow reach out to him and bring him back to the land. That was unforgettable, Danus Tirtha. And in South India, we went to Kanyakumari and the Adi Keshav temple, where Mahaprabhu found the Brahma Samhita. We recited it and spoke about it together. We bathed in the Payaswini River. Then we went to Tiruvananthapuram. In those days when we went, it was called Trivandrum, to the Ananta Padmanabh temple. And if, for those of you who remember, we went to Gokarna. And we discussed the wonderful pastimes there. And we visited Udupi several times. One time when we went to Udupi, we also went to Hampi. And in Hampi, we at Hanuman's birthplace on the top of the mountain. I remember we were giving lectures, and monkeys were coming and just sitting and listening. A group of 3 huge white monkeys came and sat down right next to the devotees at the beginning of the lecture. And I think I spoke about 3 hours on Hanuman's pastimes. And as soon as I ended the lecture, the monkeys got up and jumped away. But they just patiently sat and listened to the lecture. It was quite miraculous, considering it's Hanuman's birthplace. In Udupi, we would meet Radhanath Swami, and he would arrange so many beautiful Vishwesh Tirtha. His Holiness Radhanath Swami was so kind and so gracious. And I remember on one event, we would always meet him, and he would always give us special little talks and prasad when we were there. But on one occasion, he said that he was going to celebrate Lord Chaitanya's 500th. He would always glorify Srila Prabhupada. And he said he was going to have a Gaur Purnima, special festival for the first time in history in the Udupi Krishna temple. We are so much missing the presence of Radhanath Swami. On a couple occasions, we had yatras to Nasik, to Paramhamsa Prabhu, and later Shikshastakam Prabhu, and all the devotees in Nasik would take such loving care of all of our devotees. And I'd like to conclude, believe it or not, I will conclude with just one special memory. The first time we went to Mayapur, I believe, we were in the town of Navadvip, and it was already night. And outside the complex of Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir at night in those days was considered not very safe also. We took a boat. All the devotees, I think there were 25 of us or something, we all took a boat from Navadvip to the dock at the end of Rudradvip or Mayapur. And by that time it was night. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and it was dark. And we were having kirtan back to the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. And on the way back, this is such a special thing. We were just passing various Gaudiya mats, which are sacred places established by Srila Prabhupada's God brothers. And at one Gaudiya mat that we passed, a brahmachari came out and said, "My Guru Maharaj really would like all of you to come up to his room." I turned around to whoever thought they were organizers of the yatra, and I said, "Should we go?" And they said, no, we really can't go. It's already so late. And ISKCON Chandrodaya Mandir, Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, it's so late. They lock their gates, and we can't do this to them. And the brahmachari said, "But my Guru Maharaj really wants all of you to come up." So I said to the devotees, "We'll just go up and offer obeisances to him, and then we'll go back. But we can't say no to one of Prabhupada's God brothers. He's inviting us." So we went up and we crowded in his room, and there was His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. And he was, at that time, he was in his 90s. He was quite old, and he was just laying in a bed, and we all crowded in his room around his bed. And somehow or other, when he saw us, he propped up and he looked at us and smiled and spoke to us for about 2 hours. It was an incredible talk. It was in English. He was speaking in English, perfect English. And it was so full of rasa and so full of shastra and siddhanta. And he was quoting from Brahma Samhita and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he was describing Mahaprabhu's pastimes and describing pastimes of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and describing Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada's glories. And he went on for about 2 hours. And I remember, devotees who were trying to organize, they were looking. And I said, we can't leave, because I was thinking if he pauses, we'll somehow or other tell him we could leave. But for those 2 hours, he didn't pause for a second. He just was a flow. It was like a Ganga during the monsoon season of Harikatha. And it was just so beautiful and so wonderful. He just showered so much love and affection upon us. And I just remember this incident forever. I'll never forget this incident. When we finally left and we got back on the road, on that road back to Mayapur Chandra Mandir, I remember I looked at Krishna Chandra Prabhu. And Krishna Chandra Prabhu just smiled at me and said, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he really enthused his disciples to preach. And he was, with that innocent, loving smile, he smiled. Do you remember that, Krishna Chandra Prabhu? I don't think it's possibly forgettable.
I don't remember what I spoke, but I do remember that it was really an astonishing to just hear such an elderly person. And where did he get this vigor and this knowledge and this clarity at that age? That was just incredible.
And the reason I want to tell this story is today is the appearance day of His Holiness Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj, for concluding with these beautiful memories.
I'm sorry for interrupting your schedule, Gauranga Prabhu, but if you want to capture the spirit of the yatra, I have to do these things.
The interview has to be in tune with yatra. So, perfect, Maharaj. And just to remind you, Maharaj, that today many of those who have supported the Vrindavan forest over the last 1 year, they are present with us and to fulfill your dream. And Krishna Chandra Prabhu is now going to share something about some of those things which they have contributed and an appeal for the future also. Over to you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, first of all, deepest gratitude to this incredible session that you had. Really, it's just, I'm amazed at how much you remember such details. And I'm sure we could have spent the whole night, with the far more details. And most of the details, frankly, I couldn't remember. It's incredible how much it is so deep in your mind, especially all the places that you enumerated at the end. And my overriding impression of these yatras was that it only dawned much later. I mean, we were just going from year to year, and we didn't have an idea that there was a kind of a pattern or a vision and what it was accomplishing. It was like a wonderful occasion, very rare for us. But as we look back and we see that, how many devotees, the hearts have been transformed. And as the numbers grew, ironically, in spite of the in spite of the stricter rules, the numbers kept increasing even more. Normally, it would have been the other way around. People, because we said, okay, only 16 rounders should come. So devotees were starting to chant from 6 rounds to 16 rounds at least a couple of months before. And then during the yatra. So it was an incredible experience to see this. And we can see now how it has affected tens of thousands of people. And I remember one particular occasion when I don't remember when it was, but after several yatras, and then you always ask for feedback. And of course, everyone had wonderful arrangements, but till that time, wonderful experiences. But till that time, the mood was that yatra has to be austere, so the prasad also is very simple. And you just completely made a paradigm shift, and he said, no, prasadam it should be very, very. It's very important that devotees are have nice prasadam, and that was and then Gaurang Prabhu, of course, was the one who really executed it to the perfection. And from that time on, it was, people were shocked that the prasadam was so wonderful, but that brought in the kind of inspiration to so many devotees. So when I look back, when I see that so many of Prabhupada's directives to us and the behavioral needs to become a devotee that he enumerated were being fulfilled, like a regulated lifestyle, we all together, regulated diet, also sattvic diet, the mood of cooperation, the mood of devotional service, everyone wanting to please the others. And you would always say that just leave aside all other aspects, just don't talk about business, don't talk about your other occupation issues. And then the discipline that it brought in, the unity and diversity was Prabhupada's theme and what he has shown the world. And you actually also brought in, because so many dozens of countries and dozens of cities were represented in the yatra. Most of us didn't know each other, especially in the last 15 years. But it didn't matter. In one sense, we didn't know, but in one sense, we knew each other very well. And that family bonding around Krishna, was such a joyful occasion. So, in fact, at least to me, it has dawned, when we're looking back and seeing that how did you accomplish by, it's like giving us something which was very nice, and we thought it was our sense gratification. But actually, we were getting purified also, and we just enjoyed taking, and of course, the organizing that was Radhakrishna Prabhu and Viram Prabhu, and then later Sanat Kumar Prabhu, and Gaurang Prabhu, Shamanan Prabhu, and all Baldev Prabhu, and all got in. It was quite incredible. So I think it's been, we're deeply, deeply grateful to you, and we would hope that we would actually have these physical yatras in future. And also, so to that, I would like to just say that Maharaj, we had last year when we started the Vrindavan Forest Sevak scheme, and we had made an appeal for devotees to kind of help us to maintain the Vrindavan Forest and all the activities there, the Yamuna and the offerings, and none of us had in the wildest dreams felt, especially in the COVID year, that we would have the kind of response we got. Over 500 devotees actually contributed and took the maintenance to another level. It was a great help. So we are very deeply grateful to them, and because we would, also kindly appeal to those who are inspired, if they feel privileged to participate in the future also for this coming year. Considering that the amount is quite modest. In terms of the spiritual value that we get. So here, what is shown here is the Vrindavan Forest Sevak, which is a basic scheme. In case anybody is more keen to increase, and the Vrinda Devi Sevak, 25,000, Krishna Balaram Sevak at 50,000, and Nanda Yashoda Sevak at 1 lakh. So, of course, we would be very happy to have the devotees themselves also come. And we're looking forward to devotees coming this Kartik month, and also this winter, as yet the international flow of devotees is going to be relatively less. So there is a great opportunity for beyond Kartik also for devotees to come and actually experience the GEV and the Vrindavan mood in the winter, which many, many devotees are taking up from all over the country. So at this stage, I'd just like Rasikacharya Prabhu, if you could. We have a very short promotional video to be played on the Kartik Mahotsav. Rasikacharya Prabhu.
Different locations like Govindji, Nandgaon, Barsana, Gokul Mahavan, Shriji Mandir, Man Mandir. In the evening, we will have
Maharaj, we just at the end, we'd like to have your blessings, especially to these glorious devotees who have been helping us also, and many who will be coming for the upcoming yatra. Any concluding words that you have?
It would be incomplete unless we remembered what was like the mother of all yatras for our community, the Pune Yatra. For many years, we had three yatras a year. One during the Diwali vacation of Kartik, one during the summer vacation in April, May, and in the middle, in January, we would have Pune Yatra. And Krishna Chandra Prabhu, Radha Priya Devi, and Priyavrat Prabhu, and Radha Devi and Anjali or Karuna Manjari Devi, the whole family would open up their house for our whole community. It was a completely overcrowded Dharamshala guest house, during those 4 days of the Punya Yatra. There would be, 20, 30, 40 people in each room, in each bedroom. But at the very beginning, it was only about 20 or 30 devotees, and the whole yatra took place in your living room. All the kathas and kirtans were in your small living room. And then it grew from there, and we went outside to your patio. And then it grew from there, and we went into your lawn. And it went from like 25 devotees at the beginning to about how many? 4,000?
48, about 4,800 at the end of the last year.
So let us say 5,000 devotees were coming. And it went on every single year for decades without fail. And such special guests we had during the Punya Yatra. Yamuna Devi spoke eloquently about Prabhupada. She sang wonderful kirtans. We had Giriraj Maharaj and Niranjan Swami Maharaj, and Dhananjay Prabhu would come, and Sachinandan Maharaj would come, and which other senior devotees would come? Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Sridhar Maharaj also had come.
Sridhar Maharaj would come.
And Jayapataka Maharaj came at the end, the last year,
That's right.
after his serious illness.
Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj would come, and Jayadvaita Swami, Jayapatak Swami Maharaj would come. And the devotees, the feasts and the kirtans and the kathas, the purpose of all these yatras were to give us a chance to completely absorb ourselves in remembering Krishna and to unite on that principle. And this is the primary reason that Govardhan Eco Village has been offered. Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and so many of our acharyas, they desired places that were replicas of original holy places. So Govardhan Eco Village, we created this Vrindavan forest, and so much effort went into making the Madan Mohan temple, which is an actual size replica. And even the Murti of Madan Mohan, Lalita, and Radharani are like identical. For the Prana Pratishta, we had the head pujari of Madan Mohan from Karoli come and teach us how to cook and teach us how to dress. And he offered the first arti. And I remember he cried and he looked at me and he said, 450 years ago, or 400 years ago, he said, Madan Mohan left Vrindavan and came to Karoli. But today, Madan Mohan has returned to Vrindavan. And this was coming from the head pujari of Madan Mohan. He's only, in 50 years, he's only left the temple twice. One time to come to Govardhan Eco Village for this event. And the Govindaji temple, and Radha Damodar temple, Radha Raman temple, Barsana, Shriji Mandir, Man Mandir. We've created these places, the places during our Vrindavan Yatras that are the most moving, most deeply transforming, and most spiritually uplifting places during our yatras to Vrindavan. Keshi Ghat. We wanted Yamuna, and it seemed like an impossible situation, but by by Radha Vrindavan Bihari's mercy, Yamuna Devi manifested right on our property. And what can I say? The installation of our deities, Madan Mohanji and Radha Vrindavan Bihari, we had Jananivas Prabhu and Pankajangari Prabhu's, officiating the ceremonies. And we had Vrindavan forest was made for all of you, because we know how much the devotees look forward to going on pilgrimages to Vrindavan. And I hear from almost everyone over the years that these yatras that we go to the holy places, devotees practically live from yatra to yatra. They're just looking so much forward to leaving everything behind and just being with the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis and going to these holy places. It was so much a fusion which created the identity of all the devotees at Radha Gopinath Temple. The experience, the culture, and the tradition of being at these holy places. And I remember, even up to the present moment, some devotees who do not have such large incomes, they would, throughout the year, they would save up to bring their whole family to the yatra. That was like the ultimate investment of their lives. And the brahmacharis who had to stay back to take care of the deities, it was always like the ultimate austerity. Yes, these yatras are very much the life and soul of our devotees. And Govardhan Eco Village was to give us an opportunity where there's a convenient place where we can have the exact same experience in the exact same places to come on a yatra. And there's nobody trying to get money from us, by cheating us and begging from us. And there's no monkeys to steal our spectacles or bite us. And there's no traffic and horns or loudspeakers blaring. There's no pollution. What Vrindavan was in 1972 and what Vrindavan was 500 years ago to the time of the Goswamis, and what Vrindavan was at the time of Radha and Krishna. Devotees gave their lives. Our brahmacharis and grihastas who were working, they just gave their lives to try to recreate that atmosphere. Not just for foreigners or guests or tourists. That's part of the Govardhan Eco Village. Part of the Govardhan Eco Village, it's an eco village because Srila Prabhupada really, really emphasized cow protection and environmentally friendly agriculture. These were two main themes of Srila Prabhupada. But creating places of pilgrimage was one of the 7 purposes of ISKCON. And devotees are coming from all over the world, and we're so happy with that. But the real heart of the Vrindavan forest is for our own congregation, for our own community of dedicated devotees, to consider it your home. And, whatever whatever obstacles there have been as far as, the economics of making it totally accessible to every sincere devotee who wants to come. We've been striving to make it so that that's never, ever, ever an issue for anybody. We're really trying to do that so that everybody who sincerely, within our community of devotees, sincerely wants to come for this pilgrimage, counselor groups, families, individuals, whoever, yatras, sometimes, the Nasik yatra, the Kolhapur yatra, the Belgaum yatra. We just want to make every type of combination of people coming. It's your home. It was built for you. And the cows are your cows. The holy places are your holy places. And as we accept responsibilities for the project, it really becomes even more intimately experienced. The mercy and the grace of Sri Radha Vrindavan Bihari Madan Mohan Srila Prabhupada. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to everyone who is helping us to preserve this wonderful Vrindavan forest, which I really pray that you feel at the core of your heart is a spiritual home for your families. Obviously, trying to balance living in the material world and spiritualizing it into the spiritual world, does require it requires people to contribute. And for so many years, Radha Gopinath Temple never asked for funds. And to this day, it's our great wish we never, ever, ever make money an issue or pressurize. But if it comes from people's hearts and it's coming from inspiration, because there's a need. To preserve the Vrindavan forest, people like Gauranga Prabhu and Hari Priya Radha Devi and Shri Guru Charan Prabhu and Sanat Kumar Prabhu and the entire team, Vasudev Prabhu. It's too many people to say everyone, but they're just freely giving their lives to make this available to you. And I know Vishwarup Prabhu and Brajeshwari Prabhu, they come to give, they don't get paid. They just come and give, whenever they're called, and give talks. Devotees are sacrificing everything. And, I've sacrificed my life, so much of it, to make this dream into a reality. To have an experience of Vrindavan where we can be together and just discuss Krishna and chant the names of Krishna and be together for Krishna and Srimati Radharani in their abode. And it's accessible and it's for everyone. And in doing so, we develop a deeper and deeper feeling of separation from the original Vrindavan. And it's not meant to replace it. It's not meant to replace Vrindavan. It's meant to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the grace of Vrindavan. So thank you. And Krishna Chandra Prabhu and the whole team, these schemes that have been presented to you, it's really what it is. It's just an offering. it's an offering of an opportunity to serve. It's not begging for money. It's just offering an opportunity to serve. And if there's any begging, we're begging for people to accept this wonderful opportunity to serve. Thank you so very much. This is a wonderful event, and I see Vishwarup Prabhu smiling, so I know that Krishna is smiling and Radharani is blessing us. And during these yatras, yes, Shamananda Prabhu has been so instrumental, and Gauranga Prabhu, he took charge of the cooking, and Radha Bala Prabhu, just so much tears of love for him. He's an IIT graduate engineer. He could be making 6-digit salary anywhere in the world with his education and his skills. He was born close to Jagannath Puri, and he would spend so much of the year scientifically devising, engineering recipes for the yatras. And he would practice on me on small doses because he would cook for me every day. And, he would make all these recipes, and however many people, whether it's for one person or 2 people or 5,000 people or 10,000 people, any recipe, he's made it completely accessible. And, how the devotees, Damodar Prabhu, Gauranga Prabhu, what they did for the kitchen. And I'm remembering in the South India Yatra, incredible what they did. We'd be in a place, they'd set up an entire kitchen for, how many people were in that yatra? About 3,000. And every day they'd have to put the entire kitchen to cook for 3,000 or 4,000 people. They'd have to put it in trucks and ship it to the next place. And we'd have dinner, and by the next morning, when we were in the next, we'd travel at night. When the next morning, when we arrive at the place, breakfast was ready, full feast, lunch was ready, dinner was there for everyone, for full satisfaction. Some devotees said it was the best prasad they ever had. And what can I say? The next day we'd go to sleep, and the kitchen crew would be in the trucks going to the next destination to find a field. They'd have to find a field and dig ditches and make fire pits, and a whole kitchen would be set up. And every other day the whole kitchen would be reconstructed. And it took months to plan and organize all of that. And nobody got paid a penny for it. It was seva, unconditional devotional service, just to give all the devotees the most pleasure in the yatra. And Hare Krishna Prabhu and others would, developing the sound system for this. And what I say is, we've spoke about the beginning days of the yatra was very small and, gradually growing. And we would just all go out together and just sit at the spot of the Leela and have the pastimes and have kirtan, then go to the next spot. And when the yatra grew, we have a stage, and the main katha would be in the evening when everybody together was there. And there'd be like 5 or 6 or however many little groups, sometimes 10, going out in smaller buses to go to the individual places. But I can say that the large yatras, where we're all gathered together, How many people were at the last Vrindavan Yatra? I think it was 6,000 or 7,000 people.
Yeah.
8,000 people. I think someone told me 8,000 people were assembled every night in the kirtans, and the Damodarastakams, and then smaller groups in the day. And the kitchens would be cooking all morning and making wonderful feasts. In my opinion, the yatras with the larger groups are much sweeter than the smaller yatras, because there's just so much more sacrifice and devotion that's put into these yatras. And everyone together, just having Hari Katha for hours in the evening and kirtans. It's very nice to miss the old days. It's very nice to feel separation from the sweetness and the intimacy of the smaller yatras. But it should be balanced with the great appreciation and celebration for the sweetness of the larger yatras, today's yatras. You didn't miss out on anything, because it's all here for us right now. It just gets better and better and better. And if we're thinking of pleasing Srila Prabhupada, which is watering the root of the tree of our spiritual lives, how much Srila Prabhupada is showering his blessings and his mercy when thousands of people are coming together for these pilgrimages. Thinking of Prabhupada's pleasure, how sweet it is. And the more, the sweeter, as long as we just preserve the spirit, the simplicity, that we're just there to unite with one another, with Srila Prabhupada's pleasure and Sri Sri Radha Gopinath's pleasure in the center of our hearts. And how wonderful it is. We could chant, we could dance, we could hear Krishna's pastimes, we could visit Krishna's places of pilgrimage. And in between these yatras, to your heart's content, devotees are offering you Govardhan Eco Village, your home. Thank you so very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Bihari ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ji ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
And I'm seeing devotees from Pune. Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra. Radha Kant ki jai.
Shall we have Kirtan, Maharaj?
My pleasure. And there's one person who never, ever, ever missed any yatra. And that was Mahaprabhu Prabhu. Whatever the situation, he would always ride with the devotees. He was just an esteemed advocate, lawyer, established person. He always just wanted to be one of the devotees. Never missed a lecture, never missed a kirtan, he came with the devotees, he left with the devotees, and we're so much feeling separation from him and from Rasa Bihari Prabhu and Sarad Biharini Devi and to all the devotees who have departed from us this year. Each one so dear to our heart. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shyam Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada.
Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Jai Jai Shri Radhe
Radhe
Shyam. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Maharaj, would you have some time to interact with the devotees? Or
No questions.